Oh, wait a minute. Yep, good evening. Welcome to the, what date is it? July 10th, hard to believe. July 10th meeting of the Historic Plant Preservation Commission. Someone stole my introduction agenda, so I'm not going to read it tonight. We are acting in arrears here for our June meeting, which was delayed due to travel and holiday schedules for the commissioners, so I appreciate the patience of all of the petitioners. And we're going to move directly to the introduction of the commissioners. So, Wells, please introduce yourself.
My name is Wells Wheeler.
Thank you, new commissioner.
And I'm brand new.
Susan Atkinson.
John Travers.
Kurt Peretz.
Mary Ellen Swenson.
Jim Prushlock.
Robert Elfie.
All right, you've passed the first test, Wells.
I don't remember our name.
All right, I believe we do not have any meeting minutes to approve this evening, and the first agenda item, 595 Circle Lane, I believe has been postponed. And so the first order of business here this evening is a continued consideration of a request for a certificate of appropriateness approving an entry gate, reconfigured drive approach and garden pavilion at 901 Rosemary Road. I'll ask if any of the commissioners have a conflict, ex parte or otherwise, on this.
No.
And I see none, so please introduce yourselves and tell us what you got.
Good evening, commissioners, and thank you for hearing our petition. I'm Sarah Furlan of Mariana Landscape, and I will be presenting our project team's material tonight. However, Diana Melikar of Melikar Architects is joining me as well. The Flynn's had a schedule conflict and regret not being present this evening. As you know, we presented to you earlier in April, and this evening our focus will be to follow up on 4 items per the commissioner's request. The new driveway approach as it relates to the east property line, the location of the garden pavilion, the garden wall, and the site fencing along Rosemary Road. I will begin by addressing the driveway location. This image shows the existing driveway in pink. And this next image shows the driveway layout we proposed on April 23rd. The proposed driveway is shown in blue. After consulting with Mike Glomsky, the city forester, our team proposes the following changes to the driveway layout. Please, the next image, you will see references the new proposed driveway. You will see a dashed green line indicating the original proposed location of the new proposed driveway, shown again in blue. To be specific, the new proposed driveway is 44 feet from the eastern property line, and the original location was 24 feet from the property line. This new location works well for the approach to the house. It provides an additional planting buffer and screening for the neighbors to the east. We went ahead and provided a rendering showing how there's a significant buffer between this proposed new entry and the neighbor's property to the east. And you can see how we're planning on softening it. It's, softened with plantings. The next item we would like to review is the location of the garden pavilion. During the design process, several locations for the garden pavilion were considered, a location to the east and a location to the west. The following illustration shows the pool shown in blue, the 2 alternate locations shown in red, and the preferred location for the pool pavilion shown in green. The pavilion located in the east lawn was evaluated and deemed undesirable as it would be visible from the front garden and would greatly impact the privacy of the family. It would compete and detract from the views to the front of the house and would visually interrupt the entry sequence. Additionally, the location would make using the pavilion cumbersome at best, as it would require the homeowners to travel a minimum distance of 150 feet to access the pavilion, and functionally we thought that this was problematic. A more westerly location was also considered and deemed undesirable. The visual proximity to the shared driveway greatly limited the privacy of the pavilion, as it would be more visible to the neighboring property to the south. We thought this location would have a negative impact on the neighbors' view and experience driving in and out of their property along the shared driveway. The west location would also require that the pool move directly outside of the kitchen window for access and therefore visually accessible year-round. And our hope is to have that pool not visually accessible year-round. This image shows how the pavilion is centrally located in such a way that is conveniently connected to the pool, the house, and helps create a new garden room to the west, which the Flynns hope to create a garden for their daughter in that location to the west. The proposed location of the pavilion, shown in green, is centrally located for maximum privacy. Its location helps create a whimsical garden for the Flynn's child to the west and can be seen from the family room and the kitchen. The garden pavilion serves both the garden room and the pool. The pool is proposed in a location so it is not a focal point during the long winter months, and the pavilion is situated as not to break up the long views of the property. The pavilion is placed 50 feet from the property line, while code would allow it to be only 20 feet from the property line. It will be hidden by new evergreen plantings as well as existing mature evergreen vegetation and the neighbor's garage. Here's a section that shows the pavilion will be shielded and completely hidden from the neighbors, offering the homeowners for both properties privacy. The next item I'd like to bring up is the garden wall. These images show the current condition of the collapsed wall. The winter has taken its toll, leading to further decay. As you can see, the old garden wall has collapsed. The Flynns would like to remove the remaining portion of the wall. They would like to create a new green garden space that will tie the entire rear garden together in a comprehensive plan. And just to remind you, this is this image shows how the old garden wall bisected the property. It's kind of at an odd angle. It's not parallel to the house, and it just kind of is out in a lawn area right now. There was a garden gate that was part of this wall. It has been preserved, and it is intended, we are intending to use that gate in the garden design. It does not meet pool code, so it will not be part of the perimeter fencing, but it will be part of the garden. This is the northern part of the property along Rosemary Road. When we were here last, there was conversation about the fencing along Rosemary Road. We have learned that, and it's our understanding that there has been a stockade fence on this property in this location since the 1930s. The existing fence, shown in red, runs along Rosemary Road and provides much-needed privacy. The Flynns would like to maintain this privacy and replace the old and in poor condition fence with a new stockade fence. They would like to enhance the aesthetics, though, by creating a planting buffer. By moving the fence further into the property, as shown in orange, there will be a substantial planting bed to screen and soften the fence. Currently, the fence is only 12 inches to 3 feet away from the sidewalk and is very visible. The new layout would allow for a planting bed from a minimum of 10 feet up to 40 feet away from the sidewalk, thus creating a substantial planting border to soften and screen the fence. We have provided this graphic to show how the planting buffer would screen the fence. The Flynns would like to implement planting and obscure the fence. They have no desire in looking at a fence, and planting it is the preferred way to go. These images show a stockade fence, the existing stockade fence on the upper three images, and then directly across the street, the neighboring property serves as a model of the kind of planting the Flynns would like to pursue. The image shows a stockade fence aesthetically screened with plantings that will enhance the positive character of the streetscape. And this concludes our presentation. Thank you for your consideration, and we look forward to responding to your questions.
All right, thank you. Kathy, do we have a staff report?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Peretz. As I think was mentioned last time, until very recently, this property was in disrepair. The house was vacant for probably at least 10 years. The property was on the market, and the city received numerous calls from potential buyers wanting to demolish this house. From the staff perspective, this is really a success to see this project coming forward, to see all the work that's been done on the site to date. We wish there were more buyers like the Flynns. We have a couple other properties that would really benefit from their attention. The staff report or the presentation was very comprehensive, but key issues that the commission identified last time: the new curb cut location. You did hear from the property owner to the east, concern about the location of that driveway, fairly close to the east property line. That driveway has been shifted and now is 40-some feet from that property line. That location was worked through with the city's certified arborist to really locate it in a way that respected the existing streetscape and really provided much more of a cushion to that property owner to the east. You also talked about the existing garden wall. Efforts early in the restoration work on this house were made to restore that wall, and the more work that occurred, the more the wall just crumbled. It was originally constructed with telephone tile. Our experience in working with some foundations that are still in the city that were constructed of telephone tile, it's brittle and it really is in a condition that can't be restored, can't be preserved. Rebuilding the wall in its current location really doesn't make sense since this property was subdivided. There is now a separately owned property to the rear. That property also has new owners, so there's a lot going on in this area. You also talked about the stockade fence. There was some interest in having the stockade fence removed and views in from the street. However, the streetscape character of Rosemary really is quite closed in. The compromise, I think, that you're seeing here from the property owners is that new stockade fence will be moved significantly back from the streetscape, and the landscaping rather than the stockade fence will be visible. The fourth item that you really focused on was the siting of the pavilion. You did see a presentation of various other locations that were studied and the pros and cons of those locations. As proposed, this really is a garden folly. In its location, it really does not have any visibility from off the site. So it certainly seems to be an appropriate nod to the new owners, something that they really want to see happen in this rear yard. You do have in front of you a memo from the Preservation Foundation, and they do state support for this project. And you have one other piece of correspondence. I believe it's an email that spoke to the scale of the garden folly. You do have a recommendation in the staff report for approval. The conditions of approval are fairly standard conditions with some additional focus on the landscaping along the shared driveway on the west side of the property. There is a proposal to put an open iron gate in that location, but also to landscape that and provide an appropriate entry to that house to the rear. That concludes my comments, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great, thanks, Kathy. Now is an opportunity for the commissioners to ask any questions they may have of either the staff or the petitioner. Anyone has any?
I had one question, if I may. And I noticed, or I could not find any impermeable surface calculations for this petition, and I was wondering if I've merely overlooked them, or if they haven't been provided, or what the case may be, and whether this should be something we're concerned about.
I don't know that there were calculations in the packet. Were there?
The original packet, and it's there is, because of the size of the property, we didn't even come close to meeting any limits.
So those calculations were in the initial packet that you received. Certainly, there is some additional impervious surface occurring in the rear yard. The driveway also will remove some green space. So there is additional impervious surface, but importantly, the area where the new driveway will approach this site today, well, not today, but until very recently, that property was a separate buildable lot. It used to be the location of the tennis court for the main house. That was removed about 4 to 5 years ago. And again, until recently, a new house could have been built just to the northeast of this main house, very close to the streetscape. That was part of the earlier subdivision. So actually, when you consider that these lots are now combined, the new owners have submitted a consolidation of the two lots, so that separate lot no longer exists, which is very significant. And if you consider that there used to be a tennis court on that lot, which was removed, you're probably pretty even with the total impervious surface that existed originally on this lot. Perhaps this plan adds a little bit, but nothing significant.
I see. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Sarah, could you tell us what the material is of the driveway? Sometimes I've seen asphalt, sometimes I said chip and seal.
The goal is to have chip and seal, so a gravel aesthetic.
Gravel. Are you using any pavers anywhere? Like in the
A granite
forecourt?
paver at the entry and perhaps in the courtyard. We're not sure in the courtyard yet, but to gravel, essentially gravel driveway.
Yeah, it might look nice in that entry court if you have some pavers
Yeah.
installed in there.
So
Yeah.
Kathy, the information submitted shows that as a gravel driveway, so you might want to just note if that's really the intention to do that as a chip and seal. Let's make sure that that's
Yes.
noted.
And just to clarify, so I understand, so asphalt is a little bit different from chip and seal. Chip and seal is basically just pebbles with tar over it.
Actually, it's chip and seal. It's a little misleading, but it's actually an asphalt driveway with tar and then gravel rolled into that tar, so you have a solid base.
So it's an impervious driveway.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's essentially a really pretty asphalt driveway.
Is that kind of driveway easy to plow?
Yes, we use a special bumper on our
than gravel.
on our plows, a rubber bumper, so we raise them up a little bit. Gravel does get displaced, but it can easily be raked back in the spring.
And did you have conversations with the neighbor about the location of the driveway?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And she's a lovely lady. She's the one that let us know that in the 1930s, she's been living there, so she just wanted a little buffer, and she kind of knew the lay of the land for a long time.
So it's actually shown 3 different ways in those materials: asphalt,
Yeah,
chip and
that's
seal,
why I
and
asked, because I've seen it
There is
different ways.
asphalt in the garage court area.
help us out.
So if that was misleading, I didn't intend that to be. So in the actual turning around in the garage area off of the shared driveway, which is asphalt, that will continue to be asphalt in that between the 2 new garages, but everywhere else it is chip and seal.
Sure. Yes, of course.
I'm
quite
just going to jump in here just for 1 second.
Sure.
Because I wonder what chip and seal was too. Basically, what we think of as a gravel driveway is what they're calling chip and seal. So it looks like gravel, basically. So if you're, because I was wondering the same thing.
All right, well, it's just a detail. Obviously, this is a quite secluded lot from the public, so we're interested to understand what we're approving, but I'm not sure we're very concerned about it, but it's nice to know
But it
what
is
the aesthetic
impervious
is.
too, so that kind of makes it.
Yeah, I think on the impervious calculation, it's pretty obvious this is a quite pervious site.
Yeah.
Any other questions for the petitioner or the staff? Kathy, I have one question for you myself. In your conditions of approval, you list a number of landscape conditions which are all related to meeting the intent of the presentation with respect to buffering. There is a concept landscape plan that is attached. The conditions do not cite the concept plan or a plan that is consistent with the concept plan. I wonder if we could add that, if that would be appropriate, if the petitioner would have any problem with that.
Not at
Okay.
all.
Yeah, I think that'd be an
Sure.
appropriate addition, because I think the way that this approval would be cast is that we wouldn't come back and see another landscape plan. You would just have to make it consistent with this, so.
That's our
if that-
intention,
If that
yes.
works, I think that's fine, unless anybody else has any questions.
Oh, I have another question too. And Diana, I really had this for you since you're the designer of the property. And I just really have to revisit the stockade fence in the front. And, given that this is such a formal house, do you think it's really appropriate to have such a rustic stockade fence in the front of such a formal house? I mean, I always think that, stockade fences are better for privacy in the back, but here you have this beautiful house that's been restored. It's just lovely landscaping, and I just think it would be just so much more appropriate to have, a more formal fence. And I'm just wondering what your opinion is on that.
Well, I should probably clarify, we're not renovating, we're not the architect that's doing the renovations for the house. So the only thing that we were involved with was the pavilion and the entry gates and entry there. But I think that because they're burying that whole stockade fence, and it's just an element that's going to be part of that whole landscape feature, I don't think that that's really a problem. I mean, we see it all over, in different areas of Lake Forest, so, and we see it where it's exposed. In this particular
Right.
case, we've got it right across the street, like, the house right across the street has the same condition, and it just looks like, those images down below, there's stockade fence in there.
But we
So
have
what
talked
you're
about that
looking
being a
at was trying to
problem,
be
though.
consistent with the streetscape.
Yeah, I know we have talked about, stockade fencing in the front of these historic homes kind of being an eyesore in a way. And so
Right,
here's
I
an
think it-
opportunity to improve it. And
It's a problem if there isn't any landscaping. But in this particular case, I know that the Flynns are looking for privacy. And quite frankly, I mean, it's a large site. So you start looking at cost and, where do you have to balance that as well. And so they'd rather put it in the landscape than be putting it in a fence and then have complete transparency. So that was what.
so will it be all evergreens in the front then? Or is it deciduous plants? too?
Whole,
It'll be a combination. We don't want to make a fortress, and just like the neighboring property where you have a mixture of both, where it's, an interesting
So in the winter, you
combination.
might see some of that fence.
Not a lot. I mean,
But some.
our real goal is not to see fencing anywhere. We really want to obscure it, so.
Any other questions? If not, I'll ask if there's any public testimony on this topic. Do I see any? Sure, please come on up and introduce yourself and let us know what you have to say.
Well, good evening, everybody. I'm Craig Bergman. I actually am representing the existing owner of 899 Rosemary and the new owners of 899 Rosemary. Okay, so the Linvilles, who have lived there a long time, I know that they had written a contesting argument that I'm sure was sent to you folks. And I truly believe that because Barbara, being an interior designer, she had her own opinions about it, and they were also trying to protect the sale of their property. I mean, when you think about that, you want to make sure that that the new owner has their home represented by the current owner, and I think she and David did a really nice job of that. Henry and Joan Kleeman are here; they're our new owners, and the Mariani Group was really very helpful to us. I actually met with Diana first last week to talk about the pool house and the implications of what they might see over the fence at 899. And then Sarah, and she actually pulled Frank Mariani into the meeting as well. We met there just on Monday, and I got a preview of what Sarah had presented tonight. And the Flynns have really embraced this property for the neighborhood, I think. The idea of talking to the east neighbor, worrying about the south neighbor, not wanting to block the view of the ravine for anyone by having a transparent fence. I think they've been very sensitive about going about it. Diana's location, the final location that you saw for the pavilion, it seems in the best location for our client because in essence their coach house blocks the view of the Flynn's pavilion from anywhere on their property. They will get a little glimpse of it coming in on the shared drive at the west driveway, but because they're planting out the iron fence both sides with plantings, and they want evergreens to conceal the backs of their garages that are so tall already. They're doing the same type of planting scheme on the west view for our clients as well. So I think that they've done a great job of being sensitive to the surrounding people. And the big old Norway spruce that are at the southwest corner of the driveway where it meets the 899 property, that helps kind of set the precedent for using a lot of evergreens as well. In that bottom left corner, you can see the outline of the Kleeman's coach house, and there's a big grove of trees there already. And Sarah and I have talked, and that we're talking to the forester. There's an old silver maple that's worse for wear, and that's always been a hard thing to allow for plants to get established along this south property line. So we're talking to forestry to see if that old tree can come out, which is a liability for a slate roofed structure right next door. And that would allow for better evergreen planting between the two properties. And Frank and I have talked about doing it cooperatively between the Flynn's and the Kleemans. So everybody will be happy. And he's said he'd do it. So that's good. So thank you.
Wonderful.
We have no problem with
Thank you.
their proposal.
Any other public testimony on this subject? I'm not sure I've ever seen a neighbor hire a consultant to come in and support a project before. That's unusual. All right, it's opportunity for the commissioners to deliberate. If we have any deliberations, does anyone have a deliberation or two?
Well, my only sticking point is that rustic stockades fence. It's disappointing, but
I just wanted to amplify what Commissioner Athenson said. Sort of spurred by the Historic Preservation Foundation's presentation on fencing in Lake Forest. I've spent probably an undue amount of time in recent years looking at fences. And I do have to say, after all of that, that I believe that for some homes, beautiful manor houses like this, to put the stockade fence in front of the house is to lose an opportunity to enhance the beauty of Lake Forest by displaying these gorgeous houses using fence work which is more transparent in accord with city design guidelines. So I wanted to say that. The other thing I would say is, based on, actually spurred by having looked at this project before, I've spent some time looking at garden wall remnants also in the city of Lake Forest, of which there are a number. And I should mention that some of these remnants, there's a beautiful remnant near me running north from Westlake Road, and they can be quite magical, and I just mentioned that.
Thank you. Any other deliberations from the commissioners?
you know, I think my last sticking point too, besides the fence last time, was that garden wall. And I'm glad to hear you're reusing the gate in some fashion. I mean, I understand you can't restore that wall. It's a shame, but you know, it is what it is. It's just going to crumble. So thank you for looking at that. Thank you for looking at the location of the pavilion, because I think you answered all our questions by doing those alternative studies. And what else did I? But I'm, you know, when it comes to the rustic stockade fence, I'm more concerned in terms of the design and the design fitting the appropriateness of the house. And I just don't think it's appropriate for that formal of a house. So.
Well, I guess I'll throw in my 2 cents on the whole thing.
You don't have to agree with me.
Yeah, I don't. I usually don't. You know, I'm quite pleased at the progress of this petition. We asked them to look at a number of issues. I think that they did that. I'm very pleased with the location of the moved entry location on the east. I think that the buffering of the stockade fence is a 100% improvement from what we were shown last time we saw this. So, we could argue the merits of a different kind of fence, but I think it's a great improvement, vast improvement to this little stretch of Rosemary to drive by this as a landscaped stockade fence. And so I can certainly appreciate that some folks want privacy and some folks want to put their home on display. I'm sensitive to both, and love that someone is investing in this property and doing a really nice job here. And I love that they're working with their neighbors. That's, that's what this is all about. So the fact that they've been able to do that successfully and makes our job easier, I hope. So with that, I will ask if there's a motion on this subject.
Prepared one if you want me to.
I'll love to hear one.
Okay, so I make the motion based on the findings detailed in the applicable staff report dated July 10, 2014, which document that the project complies with the standards in Chapter 51, Historic Preservation of the City Code, and incorporating the materials submitted and presented by the petitioner and the testimony and the deliberations of the commission at this public meeting as additional findings, I move that the commission grant a certificate of appropriateness approving the alterations, additions, and restoration work as detailed on the plans presented to the commission for property located at 901 Rosemary Road, and that the commission condition its approval on the conditions of approval enumerated under the 7 numbered paragraphs on pages 6 and 7 of the staff report, and in addition, and include in that making specific reference to the landscape plan attached to the petition.
All right, the motion's been made by Commissioner Travers. Is there a second?
I second the
It is seconded by Commissioner Wheeler. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
There's one opposed, and that passes, so good luck with that. Thank you, congratulations. All right, our next order of business is a consideration of a request for a certificate of appropriateness approving repair and minor I'm sorry, I did that one. Nope, I didn't do that one. Appropriateness approving repair and minor modifications of an existing wall and minor reconfiguration of the driveway at 690 North Green Bay Road. Didn't skip anybody, did I?
No, we only have 2.
I'll ask if anyone has a conflict on that one. And I see none, so when you get ready, let us know what you got.
Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Craig Bergman. I'm the landscape architect on this project. I'm representing the Aherns, who are also in the audience tonight. And we are looking to work on rehabilitating the front landscape of this property on Green Bay Road. City staff is wonderful. I'm not good at this. Did everybody have a chance to review the packets that were assembled? Okay. I'm sure all of you have noticed the crumbling wall on Green Bay Road. Interestingly, as soon as the wall started falling, we got the call, and it was the Ahern said, okay, now it's time. And then we called the city and said, can we clean up the wall? And everybody was worried about the brick. And then, so it was interesting. That's why those piles stayed as long as they did. But we are in full force interested in trying to get this thing solved and re-erected in the new configuration for the wall. As you can see, the interesting thing about this property, you were mentioning impermeable surfaces last at the last element. What we're trying to do is reduce impermeable surfaces and get some green space so we can actually make a difference to this property from both the street view and from looking out the front of the home out to Green Bay Road. This house was built in 1939. It obviously is Art Deco in nature, and if you were lucky enough to go inside, you could really see the deco detailing. It's an incredible house. Even in the backyard, you know, if you're ever lucky enough to see that, the swimming pool is a hexagon. It's a very interesting property. One of the things I think that was very different during the time that the house was built is there was a lot less traffic on Green Bay Road. The intention was to accommodate the turning for big cars that don't have the steering systems that they have right now. And I think the architect was trying to make a real modern statement. They wanted a big open view of the house to the street because, remember, this was Lake Forest and they were doing something different. The previous owners of the house actually tried to falsely Georgianize the house. They put an odd pediment over the front door, over the garage doors that you can still see remnants of, and they put shingles all over the windows. I mean, this house originally had gunmetal steel windows, the brick walls, and the slate roof tile. So we're bringing it back to what it was. We're not trying to make it something that it isn't. As you can see, the existing photos of the front facade of the wall that's right along the public sidewalk is actually peeled off, and you can see the innards of the wall itself. The way the wall was originally constructed, it's a hollow wall, so it's two bricks stacked on a foundation that was hollow, and then the bluestone coping was never flashed underneath. So what happened was the joints between the mortar joints between the coping actually allowed water to start collecting, and it actually was filling up with water during the rainy seasons, and then the ice was expanding and ultimately just destroyed the brick on both sides. Again, the previous owners had planted the euonymus and the ivy on the wall as the wall started looking uglier and uglier. And what did that do? But those vines actually kept the moisture in the brick. The coping was failing. So in essence, it was a great place to propagate broken brick. I mean, the brick is just crumbling. So when it fell, we were able to look at the condition of the foundation, and the foundation is in pretty good shape, except where water has started collecting at the ends. And the worst wall foundation is between where the wall runs east-west. It connects to the house from the south side of the driveway. If you've looked at these pictures, I had them here for reference in case we wanted to talk about anything. Historically, the plant material on both sides of the wall, the only historic plants that are remaining are these old hawthorn trees with multiple trunks. The one at the north end is virtually almost dead. The two that are on the Green Bay Road side of the wall, our intention is, as we've been working with forestry for years, trying to preserve these trees, when those trees go, and a typical hawthorn will only live between 40 and 50 years anyways, and they were planted as part of the original landscape. When these trees go, then we're working with the forestry department to plant parkway trees in appropriate locations. So we don't want to plant parkway trees and maim the old hawthorns until the hawthorns fall over or whatever, and then we'll do the parkway trees. This drawing is hard to see projected. In your copies, it's probably easier. There's a green graphic, a blue graphic, and then a colored in green area. The outer perimeter of the existing paving is the blue dotted line, and you can see probably the most dramatic change is the reduction of the apron on the parkway between the public sidewalk and Green Bay Road. That thing allows for 3 cars to stack on that apron horizontally. I mean, it's just it's as if we were entering into a commercial, parking lot or something. It's bizarre. So what will be great for the house is that we'll be able to look through the gap between the walls and see more green space before we see the streetscape. And most importantly, the introduction of the new parkway trees on the north side of the apron will have a much better growing condition to grow in as well. And the tree that already exists on the south side will be a lot happier from the lack of reflective heat from that apron. You can see that the width of the drive where it meets the public sidewalk on the private property remains the same, but then the configuration has been simplified. You'll see in the underneath there where we are creating a true circle instead of a kind of an expanded circle over time. We know for sure that the driveway had changed in configuration twice over the years at least, and I'm sure it was to accommodate, somebody else's, a kid's car or the cleaning lady's car or whatever to keep for just vehicular circulation, because obviously, as we know, there's no parking on Green Bay Road, and they wanted to probably try to fit as many guests in their property as possible. One of the reasons that we're looking at reconfiguring the north access to the easement drive past the wall there in a different way is because there's so much pavement in front of the garage and then adjoining the branch of the drive that connects over to the North Eastman Road. We thought it would be much nicer to diffuse the impact of the garage, both from the street view and from the experience when one pulls in and out of their own driveway. You can see here with the coloration that the new configuration has a peninsula that sticks out from the garage corner that would accommodate a hedge type material, maybe of hornbeam or something like that. We're also looking to create more green enclosure with evergreen plants on both sides of the entry drive to help just give a little bit more privacy. It's amazing how busy Green Bay Road is, and this house is closer than many of the houses from the road. The green space here that you can see, this is all additional plantable green area that the new configuration allows for. There are two sections of wall that we'd like to have considered to be removed. You can see the central arced element that's facing Green Bay Road. We're looking to remove just the northern end of the wall that is closest to the driveway. And the reason being is that that allows us to have a little bit more visibility as we're pulling out of the court, because right now the wall is so close to the edge of the drive. And it also allows us to get a little bit more green screening of the driveway surface from the Green Bay Road view in towards the house. We're trying to constrict that a little bit. It's an odd situation because they have a private entry at the south end of the circle, and then there's a shared easement drive with multiple people, and you've got your garage backing right up onto it. So we're trying to do what we can to soften the edges and have that easement road feel more like a piece of the driveway that goes to the garage and not just like a great big parking lot at the north end of their house. The new landscape plan considers the future, as I had said before, those two hawthorns on the street side. Ultimately, when they die, they'll go, and that would allow us to plant the two parkway trees on the parkway. We would add an additional shade tree. We're thinking of using disease-resistant elms because we lost our elm tunnel on Green Bay Road when the Dutch elm disease came through, and interestingly, forestry is trying to bring it back with disease-resistant elms. So we're doing our part to help, with that. And then that third tree that's on the Ahern property, we thought would be nice to be maybe a different shade canopy tree, but again, a shade tree. The foreground plantings or the foundation plantings of the house, the 6 service berries are original. We're maintaining those. The wall section the second wall section, I moved towards plants real quick. You can see I like plants. Sorry, I'm going to go back one. The other section of walling that we're proposing to remove is this connector that connects the loggia, which is this long section of the house right here. It's actually a wall that conceals a covered patio, and then that's roofed. And then this section, this is the wall section that's in the worst condition structurally. There are 3 cracks in the wall. You can touch it and it wobbles at this point. There's a historic, interesting iron gate here, and then you can see that you can't tell it because of the euonymus, but and I'll be quick about all this. you can't see the juncture here, but it's concealed in plants and euonymus right now. But what we're proposing to do, both for visibility from the inside of the yard out to the front yard, and also to economize, to have to rebuild this whole section of wall when we know that this whole section of wall is the next rehab that we have. What we'd like to do is we'd like to take this section of wall down and put an iron fence in the same historic location that allows for transparency between the front drive court and the yard right now. It's a beautiful yard, and you really can't see any of it, even when you're in our client's front yard that's walled in. It's interesting. The gate has a very small, tight pickets. It's an attractive deco detail that we would sympathize with and run the iron fencing and recycle the old gate as the gate. So that's what's going on there. Sorry, I didn't complete my thought. So as I said here, we're proposing to do plant materials on the inside of the wall as well as the outside of the wall. You can see that this lighter green area here, we're actually bringing lawn back where there was once lawn historically. Right now it's a carpet of ground cover that clambered up all over the walls. And then this is where the evergreen plantings will kind of hug both sides of the entry drive. We're really trying our best to create a prettier view of an interesting house for the neighborhood as well as for our clients. So you can see here that with that great big apron that the first thing you see is driveway, and way back behind the driveway is a house. And what we're trying to do is with detailing and paving and with plantings to really intimise the experience and make it the worthy house that it is to the neighborhood. Gives you a sense of scale with the person standing there, but you can see the softening at the end of that wall and the peninsula of plants that help conceal some of the garage doors. I think it will be really helpful. I'm trying to convince the Aherns to take the color of the windows back to the slate color of the roof, and then I think if we go that far, then we'll do the garage doors as well. So because those garage doors, they look like three big eyes staring at you. So. If one was across the street on the east side of Green Bay Road looking across, that's what you would see with the hawthorns in place. And if, when the hawthorns are gone, then that will be the street trees, the gray or green in the middle. So, does anybody have any questions?
Oh, terrific. Thank you. Let's see if we have a staff report for this.
Not much after that. Rather than just do a repair, and actually Mr. Bergman called staff very early as the wall was crumbling, as the winter finally came to an end, and we realized that this wasn't a case of a repair. So they did step back, really look at the opportunity to do some improvements. But it was important to bring this before the commission. It is an important streetscape, and what's proposed really is consistent with the standards in the ordinance. So staff recommendation is to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the project as presented.
Great, thank you. And let's see if we have any questions for either the staff or the petitioner, and I'll kick it off real quick. Craig, on the existing fence that's going to remain, you alluded to a future renovation someday down the road, because that probably needs some attention down the road. How bad is it, and will you try to do anything in the interim, like flashing wise, to preserve that or push that off even further?
I think you have a builder's mind. What we're doing about reconstructing the newly built wall and the motor court is repurposing the old bluestone cap. So we're reusing the same cap, but we're flashing underneath it. And then as an add to the contract, we're having the mason look at what it would cost to flash the remaining wall all the way down. And if you notice this winter, the ivy took a really, if that was a green wall, nobody even knew there was a brick wall there. They just thought it was an ivy hedge. So we waited to see what Mother Nature was going to yield us. So now we'll take any of the ivy that's compromising the cap down, We were told to not do anything till you folks had a chance to talk to us. So, so the next thing is to stabilize the wall so we don't have any more damage. So we're assuming it means reflashing the entire length of the wall. And then the old adage is, we're doing this at a number of old houses here in town. When it falls over, then you fix it. You know, so so we're going to secure the cap so we don't have any more water getting into the wall. But then you'll see, when you see that brick fall, then you'll know that section's going to be fixed.
Okay. Well, I think the flashing would go a long way to
Yeah.
get that off of my watch. Other questions from?
So are you reusing the brick on that curve?
Unfortunately, we're not,
No,
because
okay.
when you touch the brick, it just shatters.
Oh, wow.
So we've asked Masonry by Fernando to find us as close a brick as possible, and he was our consulting mason, and if anybody can find a sympathetic brick, it's him. So
Craig, is that a frost wall underneath the brick
it
wall?
has a 42-inch deep
Okay.
footing,
Yeah.
and if you know now, our footing should be deeper. And if you knew the history of Green Bay Road, you'd realize that it's been risen a number of times. So actually, the wall, the bottom of the motor court wall, is buried in some places 10 to 12 inches because the public sidewalk is higher than the
Right.
top of the foundation of the wall. So we're bringing it back so the brick isn't wicking moisture from the
Right.
grade.
And that looks like it was a cavity wall. And
It was a cavity wall.
Yeah, is that typical in landscape garden walls?
I think the architect, it's proven throughout the project, throughout the property, he salvaged things from different projects that he worked on, and even the original drawings of the house don't match what he built.
Yeah.
So we don't really know whether, he had just enough money to put the wall up, and we just don't know.
Yeah.
But interestingly, it is the same brick as the house.
Okay. And you're going to build a solid wall,
It will be a solid wall this
Okay.
time, yeah.
face brick?
It will be.
Was this common brick, or was
No,
it,
it's not common brick. It's a red clay.
that wouldn't have lasted
brick.
very long?
No, I mean, that would have,
Yeah.
as soon as Euonymus grabbed it, it would have pulled it down, so. No, it'll probably be a CMU-filled wall. I mean, I think the reason he did a quiet, or just a two-stack hollow core wall initially was he liked the narrowness of the wall,
Right.
so. But we're keeping the dimension of the wall the same. We're just constructing it to last.
Good.
It won't look any different on the outside.
Right.
Any other questions for the staff or the petitioner? I'll ask if there's any public testimony on this subject, and I see none, so now is an opportunity for us to deliberate, if we have any deliberations.
Well, I'll just say, I walk by this every day. I'm so sad to see your wall fall. But I have to say, this is going to be fabulous. I mean, getting more green space back and honoring the historic character of it, I think it's going to be a great project. So thank you so much. It's going to be great.
Yep, seems like a very thoughtful and nicely thought out solution. So I will ask if there's a motion.
I'll do one if you wish.
Keep going.
Based on the findings detailed in the applicable staff report dated July 10th, 2014, which document that the project complies with the standards in Chapter 51, Historic Preservation of the City Code, and incorporating the materials submitted and presented by the petitioner and the testimony and the deliberations of the commission at this public meeting as additional findings, I move that the commission grant a certificate of appropriateness approving the repair of a perimeter wall and reconfigured driveway as detailed on the plans presented to the commission for property located at 690 Green Bay Road, and condition its approval on the conditions of approval enumerated under the numbered paragraph 1 on page 4 of the applicable staff report.
All right, the motion's been made by Commissioner Travers. Is there a second?
Second?
There's seconded by Commissioner Swenson.
4 years.
You know it's 75 also. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, you're free. You could go. Congratulations. All right, one more, folks. Hang in there with us.
yeah.
We have, our last item here is a consideration of a request for certificate of appropriateness approving modifications to an existing bay window at 1411 Lake Road. And I'll ask one more time if there's any conflict from any of the commissioners.
No.
I see none, so tell us what you got, when you're ready.
Good evening. I'm Mike Millett, Lynch Construction. I'm here on behalf of the Shawbreakers. Unfortunately, they're out of town at this time, so they won't be here tonight. What we're proposing to do is, as you see, as a bay extension. It's a existing first floor bay that we're just basically extending. If you look at the site plan here, you can see the house's relationship to the street. It's set quite far back. This is the Lake Road right here. It's a flag lot. And then the bay that we're looking to alter is in the backyard facing the lake. This is top of the bluff. This drops approximately 80 feet to a beach, and then Lake Michigan is all the way back here. This is the existing east elevation. This is the bay in question that we're looking to raise. There's another bay that we're using as a precedent to sort of tie this house together. The idea of the whole bay design is to utilize the existing large attic up here and to capture the views of Lake Michigan and let some light in there. Right now, this bay right here does tie into the attic. There's a very small third floor portion. However, as you can see, it doesn't really pick up the views of the lake at all. This is our proposal. This is, again, extending the bay. These are the same windows. After reviewing this staff comments, we modified these windows here to add some vertical divisions in there so they relate more closely to the second and third floor windows in shape. The bay at the second floor is actually steps back a little bit. The bay is continuous, but these are voids, and this becomes a balcony for the master bedroom. So there's some French doors set back. The only thing different from your drawing in your hand is I just added a shadow to kind of indicate that that's a void. The other thing we did, which we think helps a lot symmetrically, is we took these existing windows and mirrored them on this side, on this bedroom side right here. So these windows will be exactly the same on both sides, adding a little symmetry, a little more character to the house. You can see here that the existing three-story bay over here lines up with our new bay. So these two things kind of make a more cohesive house. And then it also, I think this bay does a lot to kind of unify this elevation, makes it much more attractive, and it's much more functional for the house as well. This is just a comparison side by side, the existing versus the new. So you can see these are those existing windows that we're kind of flip-flopping, or we're mimicking, I should say. And this is the existing bay, and these walls all remain the same. It just gets lifted vertically. Side elevations just show the relationship of the bay to the house. You can see this is the existing bay right here. It's 3 stories, and there are new bay. You can sort of peek in on the side. You can make out again existing and new. So just again to kind of show the relationship, how it ties together. Another staff comment I wanted to address real quickly was this is the plan at the second floor. This indicates our little balcony. We actually did work quite hard to try to get windows flanking this French door. However, you can see the existing bedroom wall right here. It leaves us, approximately 15 inches or so. So we weren't able to put windows on either side of the French door. In lieu of that, we that was kind of our cue again to try to make this more symmetrical by adding the windows on either side to match. And go back there. These are the windows I'm referencing. I believe the staff report's comments, if I'm following it correctly, they're looking for windows on either side inside in the back wall of the bay, and those we weren't able to get. This just represents the third floor plan. This is existing space in that bay, as we saw in the elevation. This is our new bay. Again, this is all existing attic space. The nice thing about this feature too is not only are we, combining those kind of bays, but in plan it works as well, tying the house together. This is just a closer look at that bay and plan. Windows, although there are quite a few, they are very small. And on average, actually, they're all 1 foot 8 inches, so 20 inches wide. The glass size for each window is approximately 16, 17 inches. And that concludes it.
All right.
Be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Let's see if we have a staff report first. I'm sure we'll
Thank
have
you,
a
Chairman
question.
Peretz. This property was subdivided in the 1950s. This is one of many subdivisions of estates that occurred in the 1950s. Some of those subdivisions, some of those subdivisions were done without looking at the breadth of issues that would be looked at today if a subdivision of this type came in. This property is considered a lot in depth. It does not have any street frontage. It does not have the full width of street frontage on Lake Road. It does have a small access way, but there is no visibility of the house from Lake Road. The house itself was constructed in the 80s. That was before the city had a preservation commission. And certainly homes constructed at that time were not reviewed based on the same standards. The house is not, although it is within the historic district, that's why it's before you, it is not considered a contributing structure. What is proposed is a full height vertical bay extension. The existing first floor bay obviously presents a much less vertical appearance of the element. This type of element probably isn't something that the commission would approve on many homes. In this case, there is already a very similar vertical element on the other side of the house. This vertical element does take advantage of views of the lake. It is a secluded view, again, not one visible from off the site. So in that case, the vertical element itself is appropriate. It is consistent with the allowable square footage for the property. Staff is interested in the commission's discussion about consistency of windows on the bay. There currently is some inconsistency among the windows around the house. However, that's at least a point worth considering. Mr. Malloy noted the other staff comment that second floor balcony, those solids on either side of the balcony seem to be a bit inconsistent with what was on the third floor and on the second floor. And the third floor windows appear to be pushed up very close to the eave. Interested in your comments, if those were adjusted slightly, would they fit a little bit more in that solid field? The staff recommendation is to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the bay extension. Some of the conditions as recommended do speak to some of the items I just mentioned. Those can certainly be eliminated or modified by the commission. That concludes my comments.
All right, thank you, Kathy. Now is an opportunity for commissioners to ask questions of either the staff or the petitioner, if we have any.
I have a question for Kathy. I'm trying to understand you said this was built in 1980. So was this big attic bulk considered in the first time around? Because we're showing just adding 108 feet.
But still shows it under the bulk ordinance, I believe, right?
Actually, the attic has always been included in the overall bulk. Yeah.
The method of calculating the bulk has changed over time,
Okay.
since it was
But-
first
so
put in
this-
place.
But these new numbers have been calculated using.
Based on today's calculation.
Yeah, right.
In fact, I'm not certain that the building scale ordinance was actually in place, depending on exactly when in the
I didn't
80s.
think so either.
This was constructed, because the building scale ordinance itself was first adopted in the 80s. So I'm not certain that, we certainly didn't have any evidence of a building scale calculation done for this in the 80s, but I just don't know the timing of the two.
But the total is within, according to this, including all the attic, is that correct?
That is correct.
Any other questions for staff or the petitioner?
Could you put up the view of, the side view of the bay?
Sure.
So, on the top view there,
This is, to be clear, this is the new bay. right
Okay,
here,
and then
this
that's the
is
front
existing,
one there.
correct.
okay. So those,
Window spacing consistent between both sides in terms of the bay?
Yes. Yeah. The actual the dimension of the walls are very similar.
And so where are some of the inconsistencies that, the city was talking about?
I believe the one inconsistency is, I think, in question was this window right here in this bay, being perhaps more horizontal than the rest of the windows, which you can see are mostly vertical in nature. And so to address that, we plan to modify those windows to make them more vertical. And then the other question was whether or not we could fit windows either side of that, in that recessed wall, and that was just, as the plan worked, there just wasn't space without significantly altering the second floor.
now what about Kathy's comment about moving the third floor windows down?
It's a very good comment. Interesting enough, with this house is we're actually following the lead of the house. All the windows on and throughout the second floor and even the third floor, they're actually very close to the fascia line of the house. So it appears almost like it has a small header, and it's just something that is that they did with when they constructed this house. So that's what we are trying to follow suit. So it wasn't too different. But we could, and the other thing to note though too is this bay. To get the roofs and everything to work out, the tops of these windows are at 6'6", so it's actually slightly lower than a standard window. Your standard window is 6'8". So we could lower it, but I would be concerned about appearance for the.
Well, that's why I wanted to look on that side view too, because I was kind of checking out the front bay. I think the windows are different, but on the third floor, they do appear to go all the way to the top, right?
Yeah, it's hard to see. It might be a bit easy in your packets, but basically the detail that they appear to have is, I think it's a 2x6 or a 2x8. It's like a continuous casing, if you will, trim board that runs along the top. So the siding stops there, and then they have this trim that runs all the way around the house. Okay. And so that's exactly what we're proposing to continue on with the new bay.
I have a question on the balcony rail. Is that glass?
Proposed at this juncture, I think it's a knee wall that comes up a little bit, and then there's glass above that, as to not add another element to the house that is not already with the house.
So is it glass with some kind of rail mounted on the top?
Correct, to be glass with a cedar rail.
I see.
The what looks like a freeze board that you have shown on the east elevation, the proposed east elevation at the second floor, does look significantly narrow or wider than the one you're showing at the attic level.
Sure.
So that may just be an inconsistency with the
it may
drawing.
Is that just graphic?
I think it's just an inconsistency.
A graphic issue. And the ridge of the bay doesn't seem to align with the ridge of the roof.
Correct. That bay is
Not quite
is
centered.
just-
not
it's
quite
not on
centered. It's
center?
probably like 4 to
Okay.
6 inches. Yeah, and so we
Okay.
have that.
Because it does align with the side elevation. So that's just another matter of,
That's a little tiny difference.
just a, yeah. Okay, just wanted to check
Again, on the
that out.
balcony, you said there's going to be a little curb, right?
Correct. Per the design that we were working with, I think the idea was, you know, to run this siding up to make this this bay feel continuous, and so it'll in fact have a little bit of a knee wall or a curb that comes up, and then the glass will sit on top. So
Could he have some scuppers sticking through this?
correct. There'll probably be some, you know, perhaps like weep holes of that nature. Some, I guess the scupper's probably, you know, the more adequate thing, but it will not be a big scupper or anything like that that'll be obtrusive.
The only thing I'm worried about is that kind of dribbles down the face of the, face of the building. After a while.
Sure.
Yeah, that can be an issue.
All right, now's an opportunity for the public to make any comments if they have any. Do we have any comments from the public? I see none, so now's an opportunity to deliberate. You know, this is a kind of an interesting situation. I think I went out to this house in person myself and didn't walk around too much, but got a flavor from it from the driveway. It didn't feel like I wanted to look in the windows, but you know, the photos are easier to digest than the drawings in this case, and oftentimes we see that. I find myself, if you go back to your south elevation really quick, I find myself wrestling with the existing house almost more than the addition, because there's no hierarchy of massing in the drawing that makes sense to me, and it seems like, you know, I'm trying to impose that on this. The addition itself is sympathetic to the existing house. I think the staff comments were productive in terms of the changes that they made, and obviously it's pretty hard to argue that this would be a big detriment to the character of Lake Forest if we allowed it to proceed, since the only guys that can see it live in Michigan. But you know, nevertheless, I would you know, applaud any efforts you have as you you know, mature your design to the point of working drawings, to think about ways to trick the eye to not believe that mass is there. And, you know, that might come in a variety of ways. It might be a change of color at the siding. It might be just the landscaping. I don't know exactly, you know, you tell me, but it's something to be aware of and to keep your eye out for opportunities for, because as it reads on paper, and even in you know, a lesser degree, I think it's more about the existing house than the addition, frankly. You know, it's just like, how can we fool the eye as to what's going on in that bay that's on the south face of this? And I don't have any ideas for you, so I'm not inclined to grade you harshly for what's there. I think this would be, if I lived in this house, I'd like to have this bay window looking at the lake. So,
Yeah.
I can sympathize with that. I don't know, other commissioners, any comments or deliberations for us on this one?
I mean, I think you summed it up nicely. I think Kathy summed it up in her introductory remarks. I mean, it's, you know, I've been to this house several times. I know the owners not well, but I've been over there. Our kids have been there. You know, it's off the street. It is a new house. It's quirky. It's interesting. I think your points on trying to make it better and address just some of the scale and massing issues, and to use this as an opportunity to give something to the homeowner in terms of functionality and views, with you know, the thought being to try to, you know, to mask things and to correct some things that were already there is you know, just really resonated with me. So I'd be in favor of it, and just, you know, based on the special circumstances.
Any other deliberations?
As long as you fix those first floor windows, I think
Sure.
it'll be
Absolutely.
much more attractive. Yeah.
The only other issue I might have is the chimney. When you're adding the bay, extending the bay, are we changing the draft on the chimney? You can't really see it. I don't know if it's a proximity issue.
Sure. I think we're okay with the 2 and 10 foot rule.
Okay.
Just because I think the chimney's closer to. some of the existing taller spots of the house. It's hard to see in some of these elevations.
Yeah, I couldn't
Yeah.
discern where,
That's the chimney in that last drawing. It's the one that's all the way on the right side of the drawing, right?
yeah.
That shows up in the, in the plan view, it looks like it's right on top of it. but it's-
It's, yeah, certainly something we'll look at. Absolutely.
That
I
would
think
be,
the detailing challenge around that open
Yeah.
balcony needs to be thought through a little bit. I think you're going to be looking at a real drain, but
Sure. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There'll definitely be some
Yeah.
some scuppers, built into the base there. Absolutely. We
Yeah.
just have to, with care and that they don't look obtrusive.
is there a David Adler house to the west of this house? Aren't we over, at-
well, it's actually to the north and the
Is
west.
it- or is it to the
right?
north?
I think it's to the north and to the
Yeah,
west.
it's just
Yeah,
one
if
up
you look at
to the
the site
cemetery.
plan, I believe it's the one that's on the north side of the entrance driveway of this. Am I right on that, Kathy?
I think so.
And look at you gotta look at the photo.
1421, I believe.
1421.
1435 is the one I was thinking of, right?
It's right here, isn't it?
On the Sheridan Road, right?
1435 is a coach house that the commission
Right.
saw not too long ago with significant additions.
Yeah. Got it.
But I believe the 1421 is the main house.
Got it. All right, any other
Okay.
deliberations or questions? I will ask if there's a motion on this one.
I've prepared a motion if you wish. Chairman.
I would like to hear that.
Based on the findings detailed in the applicable staff report dated July 10, 2014, which document that the project complies with the standards in Chapter 51, Historic Preservation of the City Code, and incorporating the materials submitted and presented by the petitioner and the testimony and the deliberations of the commission at this public meeting as additional findings, I move that the commission grant a certificate of appropriateness approving the modification of an existing bay window to create a multi-story element as detailed on the plans presented to the commission for property located at 1411 Lake Road, and condition its approval on the conditions of approval enumerated under the four numbered paragraphs on pages 4 and 5 of the applicable staff report.
Thank you. The motion's been made by Commissioner Travers. Is there a second?
Can I just clarify that real quick?
Please.
When we were talking about Kathy's condition, did we talk about moving the windows on the third floor all the way up on those conditions? Second floor windows. Okay, I don't see that about moving the windows up. So it's just modify the first floor windows.
I think the question about whether the windows should be moved up was just in the staff report, and I think Mr.
Conditions, okay.
Lloyd did respond to that.
Okay, I just wanted to check. Because I don't think, after we talked about it, I didn't think it was really necessary to move them up, and I just want to make sure it wasn't part of the motion. Okay.
Is that clear to you, Kat? Is that clear to you, Mr. Travers?
I believe it's clear to me.
All right, the motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Alfie. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There you go. Congratulations. Good luck with that. All right, now's an opportunity for the public to address the Historic Preservation Commission on any non-agenda items. Do we have any of those? Come on up and introduce yourself and we'll see if they are or not.
Never spoken at one of these before. Okay.
It's overrated.
Can you hear me? Am I close
Sure,
enough?
yes, we
Okay.
can.
Well, my name is Elizabeth Surek, and I'm a longtime resident of Lake Forest. I'm 30 years this summer. And I'm most recently concerned with the Miller Estate House. And I know that right now it's not in danger because Whole Foods just withdrew its proposal, but I'm concerned about the future of it. And I thought it might be a nice place for the Lake Forest Historical Society, because I know that the one that we have right now, well, it looks like a garage or a really plain coach house, and it doesn't look like a house, like a nice small Queen Anne or Lake Forest mansion. And I just thought that it might be better. There might be a better place for it. And I'd also like to say that the parking lot really needs resurfacing. I don't know if you've noticed for the current Historical Society. And also, with regard to the Amberley Woods, I would really like to see the woods there preserved. And even if they can't preserve all the trees, I think they should preserve, a couple hundred of the 100-year-old trees. And also, I would like to see a prairie there. I know that some of the trees are not 100 years old. I've been to the property. I walked there on Saunders Road, and in the southwest corner, they don't have the largest trees there. But it would be nice to have a prairie there. And I have one fact for you that I heard yesterday on Chicago Tonight. Only 1/100th of 1% of Illinois prairie land is left. And so I think Lake Forest could use more prairie land. I can also say that I recently saw a documentary about Jens Jensen, the landscape architect, and he is the man who decided and he planned the parks in the city of Chicago, and he called it an emerald necklace. And I think that in West Lake Forest we could certainly use just a little bit more greenery. I know that there's the Town Line Park there, and that's great for kids, great for the public to view, and great for kids who want to play soccer. But I think we could use just a little bit more greenery there too. Coming off of the toll road, I think it's important to, and it really fits with Lake Forest. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out and voicing your concerns. I appreciate that.
Thanks.
All right, any other public comments? I see none, and I'll ask if there's any other information from the staff.
Based on the poll, it does appear that we have a quorum for the regularly scheduled July meeting, which is Wednesday, July 23rd. We will finalize that tomorrow and get a confirmation notice out to you.
All right, thank you. We'll see you soon. I would take a motion for adjournment if there is such a one.
So moved.
Since motion's been made, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thanks and good night.